So one of the things I try and do this time of year to get in the Christmas spirit is just after Thanksgiving, I go to my bookshelf and I get my old copy of A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens off the bookshelf. And I start trying to read it. I've had this book for years. It's fallen apart. And, just start reading bits and pieces of it. I try to read the whole thing. But I just love the message that Dickens is trying to get across. It's like at this time of year, we have this benevolent spirit, and he's saying, why not use that as just kind of an impetus to kickstart a more open-minded, open-hearted way of living the year round, to try to quit looking at others as so very different and try to see them as fellow human beings, of becoming willing to share your time and your resources with those who are less fortunate, to connect with other people, to not be like Scrooge was. He was hell-bent on just doing what he wanted when he wanted, and ignoring other people and shutting them out. And I've always believed that if that the purpose of life is to relate to each other, and that the purpose of life is to learn from each other, and to kind of overcome our fear and open up to love. Because if God had wanted us all to be alone, we would have each had our own planet, or at least our own island, and instead we're all smashed here together having to deal with each other. So it seems to me like that's got to be the meaning of life. But anyhow, this book just really hits a couple of just beautiful thoughts, and one of them is when the nephew shows up on Christmas Eve, and he's inviting Scrooge to come celebrate Christmas with his family, and Scrooge tells him to stick it and is putting Christmas down. The nephew says, Scrooge is just all about business, and that's all he's focused on. He doesn't care about people or happiness or anything like that. He's all about making the buck, something we know a lot in this country. So the nephew says, there are many things from which I might have derived good, by which I've not profited, I dare say, Christmas among the rest. But I'm sure I've always thought of Christmas time, when it has come around, apart from the veneration due its sacred name and origin, if anything belonging to it can be apart from that, as a good time, a kind, forgiving, charitable, pleasant time, the only time I know of in the whole long calendar of the year, when men and women seem by one consent to open their shut-up hearts freely, and to think of people below them as if they were really fellow passengers to the grave, and not another race of creatures bound on other journeys. And therefore, Uncle, though it has never put a scrap of gold or silver in my pocket, I believe that it has done me good, and that it will do me good, and I say God bless it. So I love what he's saying there. And then in a little bit, the part about the two guys coming and trying to get Scrooge to donate money to the poor is really great, because he's all about sending him to prison. And and one of the guys says they'd rather die than go to prison. He says, fine, well then let them do that and decrease the surplus population. So that's what Scrooge is all about. By the way, these are my little holiday lights back there in the window, and I hung a few Christmas ornaments in the window, and that's the first year I've done any holiday decorating, just for the heck of it. So eventually, let's see, Marley's ghost appears, and that was his business partner. And so Scrooge is trying to figure things out, and Marley's ghost is here to warn him that he's heading down the wrong path, that Marley found out about that after he died. And Scrooge says, but you were always a good man of business, Jacob, faltered Scrooge, who now began to apply this to himself. Business, cried the ghost, wringing his hands again. Mankind was my business. The common welfare was my business. Charity, mercy, forbearance, and benevolence were all my business. The dealings of my trade were but a drop in the water in the comprehensive ocean of my business. And then he talks, he's talking about why he's visiting him at Christmas. He says, at this time of the rolling year, the spectre said, I suffer most. Why did I walk through crowds of fellow beings with my eyes turned down, and never raise them to that blessed star which led the wise men to a poor abode? Were there no poor homes to which its light would have conducted me? And then my favorite part, when Marley's ghost showed up, he had this long chain, and attached to it were all the weight of the material things that he'd valued so much in life. There were these safes, there were these ledgers, these business ledgers, and these big keys for important things. And so he's getting ready to leave now, Marley's ghost. And it says, the apparition walked backward from him, and at every step it took, the window raised itself a little, so that when the spectre reached it, it was wide open. It beckoned Scrooge to approach, which he did. When they were within 2 paces of each other, Marley's ghost held up its hand, warning him to come no nearer. Scrooge stopped, not so much in obedience as in surprise and fear, for on the raising of the hand he became sensible of confused noises in the air, incoherent sounds of lamentation and regret, wailings inexpressibly sorrowful and self-accusatory. The spectre, after listening for a moment, joined the mournful dirge, and floated out upon the bleak dark night. Scrooge followed to the window, desperate in his curiosity. He looked out. The air was filled with phantoms, wandering hither and thither in restless haste, and moaning as they went. Every one of them wore chains like Marley's ghost. Some few, they might be guilty governments, were linked together. None were free. Many had been personally known to Scrooge in their lives. He had been quite familiar with one old ghost in a white waistcoat, with a monstrous iron safe attached to its ankle, who cried piteously at being unable to assist a wretched woman with an infant whom it saw below upon a doorstep. The misery with them all was, clearly, that they sought to interfere for good in human matters, and had lost the power forever. That part just always chokes me up, because here this guy would do anything to help this poorer person, but was unable to now. And yeah, it's just a good way to live. So I love this book. It's a great way to start the Christmas season, and happy holidays.